This enormous battleship, built with the world's latest technology, withstood extreme weather and enemy fire throughout the height of battle in World War II. She has remained unmoving in her Wilmington port for over 6 decades, but the stillness of her hull hides shadow figures, disembodied voices, and a man with hair like fire who all allegedly haunt this ship. And we decided to spend the night there. This week's episode is our paranormal investigation aboard the Battleship North Carolina.
A bump in the night, your heart fills with dread. Probably a murderer who wants you dead. It could be a ghost, a demon, or worse. Perhaps you're the victim of a witch's curse. It's hopeless, you're doomed. You'd call a priest if you could. You'd rather just listen to who? Sinisterhood.
Well. Did we have quite a time aboard the USS North Carolina?
This is a bucket list. We've been saying we wanted to do an overnight investigation, an overnight paranormal experience, and our buddies at the Ghost Guild hooked it up when we met them back when we covered the Mordecai Mansion at the the famous Raleigh live show where you almost didn't make it out alive.
Oh, yeah. Gosh, my opinions on pulling in versus backing in into a parking spot.
Yeah.
I almost had to be escorted out by police because it was tense. Not as tense, so, as the rivalry between NC State and University of North Carolina that we discovered. There were groups from both sides, and things playfully were heated. But what a show. That's still probably our wildest show we've ever had, and it was so much fun.
Raucous, and then the audio got lost, which were like, of course, the one night.
Oh, I forgot about that.
I think it was like my mic recorded and yours didn't. So there's a version of it, but you can't really, it's not listenable, but it was quite a fun night. And our buddies from the Ghost Guild, Nelson Nouse, Kelly McConkey, they are the ones that took us. Nelson's the one that took us on site to the Mordecai house and kind of said at the meet and greet afterwards, hey, what you really got to do is an overnight on the Battleship. And we said, you say the date and we'll be there. And we got an email and we bought a ticket.
Almost a year later, we got an email saying, hey, we're going to be doing this. And we said, we will be there. Unfortunately, Tommy could not go, but me, you, and Paris went. Paris filmed it. We've got some great footage. He is editing it as we speak. We are going to put it on YouTube, and it's quite, there's some stuff that happens. And we'll let y'all decide if it's paranormal or a fluke or what, but you can be the judge.
Be the judge. And that's why we liked doing this. If we're going to go do a paranormal investigation, you can't just let us loose in it by ourselves because I'm too scared. I can't. I would just stay in the snack area with the lights on. But also, it's what I really like about the Ghost Guild. It's a professional organization who love history and science and the unexplained. It's like all of our favorite things, even though I don't understand the science part there in the middle. And the history we're catching up on. But that's the cool part about going on it and not just saying Zach Bagans style, kicking the doors and being like, come on out, ghosts. Where are you, ghosts, hiding? You think you're a sailor? I'm going to fight you. Versus respecting and understanding like this is a meaningful place that saw some carnage.
Yeah. And not only just a meaningful place, but a place that should be respected. I mean, this was a storied battleship, the most decorated in World War II, that fought, that men lost their lives on in fighting for our country and, our freedom in the war. So under no circumstances was I about to bow up to anybody or act like an asshole because, this is kind of holy ground, I mean, we always want to be respectful, but especially in a place where something serious and traumatic for many has taken place.
No, definitely. I texted my mom because my grandfather was in World War II, and I was like, was Papa ever on a battleship? And she said, no, he pushed a piano for Mickey Rooney. He was in the USO. So he technically served, but he didn't really shoot anything. He was, all the photos I have of him are that I went and found in my mom's cedar chest are more wacky antics. Like there's a picture of them showering. There's a picture of him double fisting some beers. There's a picture of him with Mickey Rooney.
This is my experience if I were to join the military. Also, did he shoot anything? He shot the shit with Mickey Rooney.
A ton of the shit with Mickey Rooney and Bobby Breen, who I guess was like a child star that was also there. But my uncle, who just recently passed away, R.I.P. Uncle Jerry, that we've talked about before, he was in the military. It just so happened he quit serving right before they drafted folks for Vietnam, or you were chosen to go to Vietnam. And right before he passed, we were talking about his service. And I go, well, were you like sad? Were you scared to go to Vietnam? He said, hell no, I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want anybody shooting at me, and I didn't want to shoot at anybody. It's like, that's our whole family is yeah, I'll serve, but I really don't want to. How do I get out of it? But the fact that these guys went, and the footage from just the ship itself, how it moved, 15 knots isn't super fast, but when you're a ship, 728 foot long ship or something, however long this thing is, that's fast.
Yeah, and the quarters in which they slept and just generally had to move about hallways and whatnot. It is not the Ritz by any means. I mean, it is small. Everything is metal, steep staircases, no railings. I mean, it is just to get around the ship is difficult. But then you have the added element of, oh, we're also at war. It's wild to me that people were able to live there, and it's wild to me that people would voluntarily do that. And for that, I say thank you, because I certainly do not want to be the one to do that.
And I think a lot of them didn't voluntarily do it and did get drafted too. So even so, the 80 people in one tiny room with beds stacked, 5 high and all that, it is wild conditions, but this was top of the line battleship at the time. And it's now a beautiful testament, a tribute to its service, and has gained this spooky reputation around it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm Christy.
I'm Heather.
And let's get into it. Built in 1937 at the New York Navy Yard, the USS North Carolina was not only the first battleship of its kind to join the American fleet during World War II, but was also the first new ship to join the fleet in almost 20 years. After a year of preparations, the battleship made her way to the Pacific in June of 1942. From then until 1945, she was part of every major operation in the Pacific Theater. Upon returning to the U.S. in October of 1945, she posted up in the Atlantic until being deactivated the following year.
Yeah, I watched this cool, it's called World of Warships, little YouTube video on this. I don't know if it's from the History Channel or what it was from, but they did a lot of digital recreations and showing all the parts. And the width of it is purposefully to get through the Panama Canal, which I didn't think about that. You have to be cognizant. But they were testing it because the hull is so big and so long, and it needs a lot of power to move that. It's like I think it's 121,000 horsepower. It's super strong. But they practiced in New York in the harbor. So there is real footage of this baby just sailing kind of by the Statue of Liberty. And it's an interesting juxtaposition. They said people would just go out and wave at it and look at it.
It was nicknamed the Showboat because they had to do so many kind of tests to work out the kinks and whatnot that, it was kind of just put on display for a bit until they figured that all out. By the end of the war, the USS North Carolina had sailed close to 300,000 miles and earned 15 battle stars, making it the most decorated battleship that served in WW2. Years after she was decommissioned in June of 1942, passionate citizens, many of whom were school children from North Carolina, raised $350,000 to purchase the ship from the U.S. Navy to stop it from being demolished for scrap metal. The battleship was then transferred to Wilmington, North Carolina in 1961 to act as a memorial and museum. Known for its charming riverfront and historical significance, New Hanover County greatly benefits from the millions of dollars in tourism the ship generates.
And I love that it was a neighborhood, drive. Everybody's taking up money, even from little kids giving their milk money. And
so sweet. So much sweet. Nickels and dimes given from their little piggy banks to save this.
It's just their little piggy bank money. And I believe it was from the North Carolina History Museum, or it actually may have been Miss Wallace, who was the program director on the ship, said they would have older adults come on board and say, I remember being a little girl in the 1950s, or the 1960s, raising money for this. This is my ship. And it gave this sort of ownership over it. I want to preserve it and remember what it was used for, and the people who lost their lives there.
Yeah, and for also people that served there to go back, and I mean, that's, I imagine, a very powerful experience to go back and remember, oh, this is where I was standing when this happened, and this is where I slept, and just all the memories that come flooding back. Wilmington, adorable. We had such a good time. We stayed in the cutest little Airbnb right on the water. It was on the actual water.
I think it was a houseboat, technically.
Yeah. It's kind of rows of houseboats that look the same. They're all very modern and cute. But and we had a great balcony with a great view of the water and everything. There was a little festival going on right there. Everyone was so nice. It was, if you want to take a historical vacation, it would be a great place to go visit.
Yeah, they had great shopping, great food. And the cool thing, we're on the water. If you walked all the way to the end of our pier and looked, you could see the Battleship. It's sort of docked near there in the Cape Fear River. So it's a good city, and it's a good centerpiece of the city of what do we do? Well, we got a big ass haunted ship. I'll go.
Not to mention Cape Fear, which we certainly had a lot of fun with the fact that we were on Cape Fear.
Yeah, and the movie references to Cape Fear. And Wilmington's like the Hollywood of the East Coast, I guess, is what they were saying, with as many movies that have been filmed there.
Yeah, just from the bridge that's by the ship, Nelson was telling us there's a famous scene from Maximum Overdrive that was filmed there, which we had recently discussed because
we did.
Stephen King notoriously thinks it was terrible and has since apologized to Emilio Estevez for making him do the role.
Oh, no.
But I'm sure that Emilio Estevez is fine with it.
He survived. He's a duck.
He's fine.
Flying formation. He'll be fine.
The ship's first engagement and subsequently its first death occurred during the Battle of Eastern Solomons on August 24th, 1942. The battle was brief, lasting less than 10 minutes, but significantly altered the crew's mindset on the war. Rear Admiral Julian T. Burke recalled how it changed the crew.
The maturity of our seamen and our officers after that, the change in maturity and attitude and the way we approached problems was entirely different. We had grown up in 7 minutes.
Although short-lived, the ship saw her first casualty of war, George E. Conlon. Fellow seaman Mark Marco wrote in his diary about the impact of his combatant's death.
Time is now 1740. I'm now looking at a wounded man to see if I know him. Boy, that hole is through his life jacket and through him and out his life jacket. It's horrible. Now giving him morphine. They've rigged up a bottle of blood plasma and are giving him a transfusion. The man is very white from the lack of blood. Puts the fear of God into a man to see things like this. Good-looking boy, just married to a beautiful gal just before we left Fresno. Stand by for another air attack at 15:55. False alarm. The man has now died.
That evening at 11:30 p.m., George Conlon was buried at sea.
And that was a wicked attack as far as just fire raining down from the Japanese command was flying over and just encircled the airplanes have encircled both the USS Enterprise, which was now this aircraft carrier going, and then the North Carolina beside it. And it was only 7 minutes, but they said it was nothing less than 7 minutes in hell. And that they believe the USS North Carolina shot down 7 to 14 airplanes in that 7 minute span. So bad that the other ship thought that the North Carolina was on fire. They were radioing, "Are you on fire?" because it was just so much smoke.
I don't think I could even come close to understanding what that feels like. And I think reading these sea stories, and it's from the Battleship website, and we'll link it in the show notes, are fascinating to give you this insight into real time how these men were feeling. And it was actually they weren't allowed to keep diaries on the ship. They weren't supposed to, but a lot of them hid them, and then they were later found. And luckily now we have that as a preservation of history. But I think I've read in many of these, it's that first battle, the first brush with, oh, fuck, this is why we're really here. And like they said, in 7 minutes, everything they knew changed, and the way they approached everything changed in such a short amount of time.
Well, especially like you said, experiencing does make a huge difference, because they've been around. I think the ship had set sail, September, and it sailed through the Caribbean down around. So you're on the boat maybe 9-10 months, almost a year before seeing any violence like that. And for it to be a sudden onset and that severe and that much swarming is, like you said, it'll change a man.
Mm-hmm. September 15th, 1942 was the deadliest day for the crew of the USS North Carolina. Just before 3 p.m., the ship was hit by a Japanese torpedo on her port side. Seaman George Strott described the attack in his logbook.
It felt as though a giant had put his hand against the port side and shoved us with all his might through the water.
As the mighty ship took the blow, the men aboard scrambled to their battle stations. Lieutenant Edward Gallagher recalled his experience to historians.
I was knocked ass over tea kettle over and through a gun blister, but was able to make it to my battle station. The torpedo punctured some fuel tanks and started a fire, which got into the lower handling room of turret 2. The fuel was actually burning on the floor of the projectile room. The sprinklers were activated, and the turret crew came streaming out of the hatch with the smoke in swift pursuit. The word was passed, stand by to abandon ship, because if turret 2 went, the whole ship would explode like a Chinese firecracker right down the middle where all the 5-inch magazines were. It so happened that we were one life jacket short for some reason, so I didn't have one. My phone talker, assessing the situation, said, "Here, Mr. Gallagher, take my life jacket. I'm a good swimmer." Fortunately, the situation improved, so abandoning the ship wasn't necessary, but I'll always remember that young sailor and his thoughtfulness.
What an act of selflessness to give up your life jacket when, you couldn't be in a more stressful situation. You're like, the shit's about to hit the fan. We're all going over. I'll just swim. You're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And that is, I'm very glad it didn't come to that. But again, to hear like how it was actually, this guy felt with it actually going on is just, when you get these little glimpses into history, and it's not just speculation or, what we think happened, and it's writings from them experiencing it at the time, it hits different. And even like the language that they use, so many of them, it's written very poetically. It's also interesting, just like how language has evolved since then, and just slang and how we talk. So I always like when we get the opportunity to look back and get these snapshots of history and how it really was back then.
Yeah, there's nothing like a firsthand account of something that's going on, because it can't be, molded, shaped, manipulated by anybody sending any kind of mess, saying, "Oh, well, it wasn't that bad," or "It was totally bad." The diary says so. It was a nightmare. And they said it's nothing less than hell. And I think we do get carried away kind of saying, "Oh, it's a beautiful ship and a lot of respect." But when you get into the history of it, that's true, but it's also a lot of carnage and death and pain. And that's what war is violence and death and pain. And to hear them, even in the face of that, you find the kindness among fellow people, to say, "You know what, Lieutenant, you take I'm a good swimmer, buddy, you take this." Amidst being in literal hell, raining fire down upon you, to find that kindness, that's what humanity is.
Yeah. And you have that bond that, you are the only other person that knows what it's like to be going through this. It's a trauma bond. And to still find kindness in those moments. It's like Mr. Rogers' mom always said, look for the helpers.
That's right. Sinisterhood will be right back. You know that feeling? At least I get this feeling when I'm searching through the marketplace or looking on online auctions, just trying to find some like weird object that I want. And I look and I find it and it's so great. Why can't that just be the same with doctors?
I don't know. It's so difficult to find a doctor. I get very overwhelmed and shut down at the thought of having to research all of that, figure out who's taking my insurance. Are they even like close? How far am I going to be driving? It's way too much. But all of that is simplified into one easy process with ZocDoc.
Yeah, ZocDoc is a place to find and book great doctors who actually have amazing reviews. Some of them have appointments within 24 hours. And you've used ZocDoc.
I've used ZocDoc. Tommy uses ZocDoc.
I use ZocDoc. Paris uses ZocDoc. It's a fast way to find out new doctors, or like I said, I had some doctors I already liked, and I was like, is there anything I need to watch out for? Nope. 5-star reviews. And I know that their patient visited the place and then reviewed it, not something padded or fake.
Right? And a lot of them you can be seen within 24 hours. It can take months to get into some doctors. And when you're sick, you don't want to wait months. You need something right away. So you're able to see like who can see me super fast so I'm feeling better ASAP.
ZocDoc is a free app where you can find amazing doctors and book appointments online. We're talking about booking appointments with thousands of top-rated, patient-reviewed doctors and specialists.
You can filter specifically for ones who take your insurance, are located near you, and treat almost any condition you're searching for.
The insurance is a game changer to be able to sort by that, because my insurance changed 3 times in like 1 year.
Right.
And that was such a nightmare to be like, am I going to have to switch? And if I do, so the insurance check comes in clutch. Go to ZocDoc.com/creepy and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then find and book a top-rated doctor today.
That's ZocDoc.com/creepy. ZocDoc.com/creepy. The long-range torpedo had hit just forward of the thick armor belt specifically designed to help the vessel withstand such an attack. As seawater rushed in through the 32-foot by 18-foot hole in the side of the ship, it began to list. Crew members jumped into action, purposely flooding areas on the starboard side in an attempt to even out the weight and restore balance. During the attack, Albert S. Geary was blown off the deck. The sailor was lost at sea. His body never recovered. Also killed during the explosive impact was William Skelton, Oscar Stone, and Ingwald Nelson. Many more lives would have been lost that day, if not for the heroic efforts made by one man in particular, Leonard Pone, a gunner's mate. Pone sacrificed himself to the rising waters and burning oil in order to seal the watertight doors, preventing the water and fire from spreading to other areas of the ship.
There's no other word for that but hero, because it's certain death. We were down in that area, and there it is. The walls of this thing are, hundreds of millimeters thick. We don't have to tell you that. It's a thick ass boat, but there's just no getting out. And if you don't close that door, it's all going down. But if you do close the door, you're going down. Mm-hmm. And that is a decision to make.
It is. And being down there was very powerful. I mean, we were sitting right by where the torpedo hit. There's a plaque honoring those that lost their lives. And then we were, using some different mechanisms to try and perhaps communicate. Obviously this area is underwater where the torpedo struck. So a 32-foot by 18-foot hole. I mean, water's just gushing in. Mm-hmm. I mean, the terror one must feel. And then in the face of that, to say, you know what? I'm sacrificing myself to save hundreds of my fellow seamen is, like you said, hero is the only word for it.
Well, it's because the boat goes down like 9.5 meters, like displacement wise. So that's how much is already underwater. So yeah, a hit down low like that, you're already underwater. It's going.
Yeah. While fighting kamikazes on April 5th, 1945, 3 men aboard the battleship were killed by friendly fire. Another sailor lost his life that same day during a seaplane accident. By the end of the war, 10 crew members of the USS North Carolina had been killed, while 67 more had been wounded. Danielle Wallace, the ship's program manager for over a decade, told WRAL News in 2022,
"Our reputation probably got out with being haunted because of Danny Bradshaw. He was our night watchman here on board the ship for over 30 years, and he wrote a book, Ghosts on the Battleship North Carolina."
Bradshaw's book covers his time on board the ship. A staunch believer that the ship was inhabited by sailors from the past, Danny started on board in 1976. A buddy left the job to become a pilot after a 5-year stint, spending nights on the massive vessel. The friend told Danny, who was hired as his replacement, that while it was a pretty sweet gig, it came with a small price. Danny explained to the Greensboro News and Record that his pal told him,
"Don't laugh in my face. There are going to be things that happen here that there's no explanation for." That would make me want to take the job more.
Yeah, you're like, I'm listening.
What?
Danny's initial belief that he could sleep through any possible ghostly happenings waned just after he started working there. He would encounter doors and hatches opening and closing by themselves, lights and televisions turning on and off on their own, disembodied footsteps, and objects moving by themselves. It's an active but not always a fun atmosphere, with Danny telling the news and report,
"I want you to understand this place is haunted. I get scared. I get horrified."
I like that we did not know this prior to our trip, because I also would have been way more scared and horrified if I had known what Danny Bradshaw had to say.
Yeah, if you spend 6 nights a week sleeping on the ship every week from 1976 up through, 35, however many, 40 years, that's a lot of late nights for you to run into something.
By yourself, too.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you're like, I'm a skeptic. I don't really believe in that stuff. Being on a giant battleship at night, and it's obviously in water and surrounded by like marsh and stuff, and you can just stand on the deck and look out. I mean, and it's a beautiful view, but you're pretty alone. You're pretty isolated. So, I mean, even the bravest skeptic, I feel like you'd get creeped out and things are going to start. What was that? Did I hear something? Like, you see shadows, but then things start happening. You're like, this isn't just my mind playing tricks on me. There's something else going on here.
Yeah, both that big too. It's like something probably made the noise. Was it a ghost? Is it just creaking because it's a million years old? We don't know, but there's noises. And according to Danny Bradshaw, maybe come up and touch you.
Is it Bobby D?
Oh, well, that's the other thing. If you're out in the marsh, if you're going to go out on the deck of this bad boy alone at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning like we did, you got to keep your eyes peeled for Bobby D, the fiercest gator of the Battleship Swamp.
His name, I believe, is not Bobby D.
No, to clarify.
Charlie?
To clarify, there's a 13-foot alligator named Charlie that lives in the water right next to it. But I walked off and was taking pictures, and I come back, and you and Paris were just laughing, going, "Bobby D! Bobby D!" I was like, what are you talking about?
We renamed him Bobby D because of Cape Fear. It's right on the river of Cape Fear. So we're like, we're going to call him Bobby D. We did not see
Robert
him.
De Niro.
But many of the people that work on the ship were like, oh, yeah, he's out there all the time.
It's just like the real Robert De Niro. We've never seen him in person, but everyone says he's great.
He's out there. He's out there all the time.
And he'll bite you, too.
The 10 crewmen who lost their lives aboard the ship were young when they died, and Danny believes that may hold the key to their sticking around. In one interview, he said,
"If there are any tortured souls on board who might believe they died too young, it's probably these guys."
The very first night he saw an unexplained form on board, Danny was making his usual rounds turning on power boxes that light the ship overnight. As he neared the mess hall, Danny felt a rush of cold air and a hand on his shoulder. When he looked behind him through the darkness to see who had touched him, he saw nothing. All he heard was receding footsteps. Well, I don't like that.
No, don't touch me. Unless it's me and you clinging to one another in the dark. I don't want anybody to reach out and grab me. And I know it's not Paris grabbing me because he's holding the camera. So that's it.
And the footsteps just walking away. I mean, you're like,
it's echoey.
Something was here. Do you go after it?
That's when we were sitting silently in one of the rooms talking to the specters, the ghosts, hearing even just other people that I knew were also in the ship, the faint of like feet, it still made me kind of like, it's probably the other investigators, right? But I would not follow it because it's walking away. And to me, if it wanted to talk, it could have stayed face to face.
True. Danny told the crew from Ghost Hunters that he turned back around, shining his flashlight into the mess hall. In a nearby open hatch, his flashlight beam caught the face of a blonde sailor whose skin was pale white and translucent, allowing the flashlight's beams to pass through him. The apparition's hair was like a white flame atop his head. Danny couldn't speak, he told the ghost hunter's crew.
I let out a scream. It scared me so bad. When I screamed, he turned his head towards me and he had a look on his face like, don't do that. And he started to turn his head back away from me and he just disappeared.
In recalling the encounter for the News and Record, Danny described it as
the horriblest thing I've ever experienced.
That'll do it. You know, I mean, I've had some jobs where I didn't love the policies or, you know, the hours, but I've never had a job where I shone a flashlight and a specter was looking at me like, I wouldn't do that if I were you.
That's especially what I don't like is the head nod. But I did envision him as the heat miser with hair aflame on top of his head, like from that cartoon or whatever, the stop motion animation. But all of it together. I don't want to be alone down there. The mess hall is down where there aren't windows, there aren't portholes. So it is so enrapturingly dark down there. And to think about the flashlight beam of we were shining flashlight beams. I want it to hit things that it doesn't go through. Like I'm here for that. Like a table or a door.
But even that, because I did have an encounter with something that I could not see through. Mm-hmm. And it scared the ever living bejesus out of me. It is on our video, so go to YouTube to watch it. But also, maybe the ghost was saying, instead of being like, don't do that, maybe he was going, don't do that. I'm just vibing. Please stop screaming in my face.
That's right. I bet if you didn't scream and just waved, maybe the ghost would have waved back and would have been like, can you not yell? It's echoey as fuck down here. And it's like 3:00 in the morning. Please stop screaming.
The most wild part of this to me is that Danny continued to work there. He's scared shitless, seeing stuff all the time, hearing things, but he's like, this is my job. I'm not going to quit. He has more resolution than I do, for sure.
In 1976, I told my buddy I'd take over for him, and I'm not in the business of quitting. And you're like,
I'm not letting him down.
Hell of a guy. Sinisterhood will be right back. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. It's about to be the holidays. Everyone's putting up Christmas lights, but sometimes those reflected blue, red, green, whatever lights you have on your house, it makes people depressed because it's the holidays. It can be a sad time for some. And it's not holly jolly. It's a saddy batty Christmas.
For many, the holidays can be sad for many different reasons. And I think that's often overlooked because it's, considered a joyous time, but not for all, and that is something very good to keep in mind. It can be a lot this time of year, and it's natural if you feel sadness or anxiety about it, but adding something new and positive to your life can help counteract those feelings.
Testify. Therapy can be a bright spot amid all of the stress and change. It's something to look forward to. It makes you feel grounded. It gives you the tools to manage everything going on. I just got a new therapist on BetterHelp, and I am very excited. I was able to sort by people who be able to help with what I was looking to be helped with, certain types of therapy they do, and then had my first appointment, easy breezy, booked it on the app, and honestly, one session started feeling better and given tools to say, until we meet again, here are some tools that you can take with you. So it's just something that helps me take the edge off a little bit.
And like you said, even that first meeting, knowing that you have done something and you will be doing something to help, for me, already takes so much stress off of me because I feel like I am on the path to healing myself. And that in and of itself is like the best feeling and can make you feel a world of difference. Even just knowing that you've booked it can make you feel so much better.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. BetterHelp is convenient, flexible, affordable, and entirely online. You just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge.
Find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/sinister today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/sinister. Danny tried to escape, heading in the opposite direction from where he came. When he tried climbing a different ladder to make it back to a higher deck, he could hear banging and heavy footsteps above his head. Terrified, he believed the spirit had trapped him below deck. Danny told the News and Record he ran to another ladder while praying,
"Please, God, let me out. I don't want to die here."
Thankfully, Danny did not die that evening and served for many more years as the only living person on board the ship after dark most nights. Two main spirits made themselves known to Danny, according to Ghosts and Legends of Carolina Coast. One specter is a bit of a prankster who would mess with Danny by turning lights on and off, moving objects, and slamming doors. The other ghost would torment Danny, leading him to believe the entity was pure evil. Anytime the evil spirit visited him, the room would turn ice cold. Approaching from behind him, Danny would hear footsteps and, most frightening of all, the sound of a disembodied scream. He said,
all of a sudden, you start getting an eerie feeling like something bad's going to happen.
But the answer was not to run. Instead, Danny learned to stand his ground for several moments until the apparition would vanish.
Oh, that is some unflappability on parallel with a person we know to say, you hear the tick, 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 and it runs fast at you and it's like, ah! It screams right at you and to just go, all right, I'm going to stare this one down. And the ghost is like, I'm trying everything. It's going to be like the ghost on Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis just put the sheets on themselves like, we're scary. And it's like, nah, I'm not scared.
No, I'm not doing it. Yeah. If not Danny Bradshaw, second person I would nominate for this job is my husband, because I feel like he'd just be like, yeah, I'll go down to the mess hall. What time is it? 3 a.m.? Sure. Yeah, I'll go down. I don't even need a flashlight. It's fine. I'll just feel my way around.
We have to reminisce when we found out Tommy wasn't going to be going with the three of us sitting on the porch. Oh. We were afraid he wasn't going to be able to. And then as we were out there going, I was like, please. And you're like, please, we can't do this. We're like, the ghosts are going to get us and we're scared. And he's like, well, I can make you feel better. There's no ghosts on the boat. It was like, okay, well, thanks.
All right. Well, we'll go into it with that attitude and we'll feel better.
Well, Danny freaking got screamed at in his face. So
yeah, tell that to Danny. Tell that to Danny. There's no ghosts on the ship.
Although, if you did want to fight off a ghost, just completely denying they exist is like, kind of Dwight Schrute shunning. Like, yeah, shun, I'm not hearing you. And the ghost is like, all right, I give up.
You ghost the ghost. That's you fight fire with fire. You fight ghosts with ghosts.
You always got to ghost the ghost.
That's what you've got to do. Danny is not the only one who has seen spirits aboard the decorated warship. Paranormal investigators make their way through the ship regularly. The television series Ghost Hunters, featuring the crew of TAPS, or the Atlantic Paranormal Society, investigated the ship in an episode of 2005 after leaving Raleigh's Mordecai house early due to food poisoning. We discussed this in our live show.
And I think on the recorded episode too, it's such a good, they're like, okay, we have all the equipment. Oh, wait, you guys, my stomach hurts. And if you feel bad, because it's like a 2-hour drive to the Battleship. So they called it at the Mordecai house and turned their attention here. But we didn't get poisoned.
They weren't willing to desecrate the bathroom aboard this decorated warship, which we were also told, especially with women, there tends to be some activity in there. So every time Heather and I would go to the bathroom, we would take our phones and record. So there's just all sorts of audio of just us peeing, just in case there may have been some whispered sounds, or some people had reported like feeling like their hair tugged or something in there. But
pat on the tush.
A little, yeah. I didn't feel any of that, but
I was giving him out all night, but I didn't get any. I was this close to getting thrown out of the investigation.
Boasting
more equipment than any paranormal group can dream of.
TAPS arrived from their home state of Rhode Island and were met on the ship by Danny Bradshaw himself. Danny showed off his room, in which he slept 6 nights per week. Not mincing words, the watchman told investigators,
there's a ghost on here. I've seen him 3 times. The first time, a friend of mine was coming over to see me. I was walking down the ramp when I saw her driving in, and she said the porthole curtain in my room pulled back and a head come up and was looking out, and she thought it was me. And all of a sudden, porthole curtain jerked back real quick.
Danny's friends started shouting as they both saw the head retreat and pull the curtain closed. Since he had just been in his room and locked the door behind him, Danny knew what they had seen was not a living person. Danny saw a ghost while he was in his room once as well. The TV turned on by itself, and Danny felt an eerie presence near him. He told Taps that when he looked, a full-body apparition was standing beside his television. He made out features and details, saying,
"It was the ghost. He had like a blank look on his face, and you could see right through him. The one thing that stood out more than anything was his hair. It wasn't like normal hair. It was like a white flame. It lasted about 5 seconds, and then boom, that was it. That was all."
So it sounds like the one from the mess hall with the white hair.
Keep seeing him around, and you're just laying on your side, just curling up, getting ready to go to sleep, watching the Wheel of Fortune or whatever. You look over and blank look on your face. And I wonder if some of these instances where the spirits are sort of staring or like, what are you doing? Since he was a male, like it wouldn't be completely shocking out of the blue if a ship full of 2,300 men, there was another man on it. So they're just like, oh, who are you? And they don't pinch the bottom of Danny Bradshaw. He didn't, in anything I read, he didn't say they came up and pinched him or anything. It was just more of one-to-one contact.
Mm-hmm. Female visitors have a different type of ghostly experience. Programs manager Danielle Wallace told the NC History Museum during a panel.
What we tend to hear a lot about is that people will get touched. Like their hair will be pulled, and sometimes ladies will get a little pat on their behind. What I tend to say is, well, they're sailors, so what can we expect?
We, I believe, did sign a disclaimer when we went on board. But, you know, just to somebody that's, because it's open all day for tourists and stuff, you're just walking around learning about the ship. You get a little pinch. There's no one there.
More than what you bargained for. You got to go to the front and complain. And they're like, well, that's just our ghost.
Or you don't go complain. You just stand there and you're like, every day they're like, Miss Wallace, we've seen you back here every day for the past year. Yeah, I have a specific spot of the area I really like to go to. I'm just going to go back and visit that one spot of the ship. I'll be there from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
But they're like, that's the woman that just goes in downward dog position in front of the bathroom playing face down, ass up on her iPhone out loud. It's weird. Hadn't worked yet, but she comes back every day.
Every day. She doesn't even live here. She has taken up residence. She's doing a long-term rental in one of those houseboats. She just comes over every day.
She does the same thing on her balcony of the houseboat facing the boat, too, just in case he can see from one deck to the other.
We're getting a lot of complaints. Well, they had to cancel the festival because children.
Riverfest over. Gone.
Yeah, we're thinking about she might not be allowed to come back to North Carolina after the end of this.
We have to call the Parks Department to ban her from all major possible haunted places because this is not going to be the only one.
Danny's experiences and those cataloged by Danielle Wallace all track with the current crew who we spoke with while investigating. 3 employees we talked with had experienced unexplained happenings. One of them heard a disembodied voice answering, "Good morning," after he had called out the greeting 3 times. Another saw the shadowy silhouettes of people walking through a crack in one of the stateroom windows. When he looked outside the door, no one was there.
That was eerie because the gentleman that heard good morning said, he's like, yeah, I was by myself, flipping on lights, just going, good morning, do, good morning. And then to just get good morning back, you're like, oh, that was really polite.
I love talking to those men. They were clearly very passionate about what they do and feel a deep sense of pride. And to hear them telling these stories, which I imagine they enjoy telling, a group of newcomers. But the looks on their faces, never once was it like a wink and a nod or they were very stoic, like, yeah, 100%, this is what happened. And these are veterans, they're not, it's one of whom still stays on the ship, monitoring it in the captain's quarters, knowing all of this, and just, they're brave. They're braver than I.
Well, you're right. It was interesting to talk to them, and their attitude around it was very, yeah, this happened. And not saying, oh, it absolutely was a ghost. It was just like, I can't explain these things. And the one who saw the footsteps, he kind of showed us, at least pointed out the room where it happened. And it would be like you had a curtain drawn, over your window, and you see bodies moving past you. You're like, who the hell is on this ship? And, but yeah, you're right. I didn't get the whole, I'm going to make up a fake story to make all these outsiders interested. It was just very matter of fact of like, I'll tell you what I've seen.
Mm-hmm. A third employee explained how one spirit sneaks up on unsuspecting workers in the gift shop stockroom and whispers,
"It's George."
This leads some to believe it is the spirit of George Conlon, the first fatality on the ship, who was killed in combat in the Solomon Islands. One of the employees explained,
"I know they're here and they know we're here,"
before explaining that nothing was there to hurt us. With that reassurance, we set out for our very first official overnight paranormal investigation.
Oh, yeah. We got ready. Oh, she also said in the gift shop, the same one that was telling us about "It's George" in the stockroom was saying that ornaments were flung across the room.
Mm-hmm. Full on, like the metal like rod that in retail has you stick in the slats on the wall to hang stuff on. Those would come off. And if you've worked, you got to maneuver them in there. They would just come off and fly across the room.
And yeah, the end of it kind of bends upward to keep the stuff from just sliding and falling off. And she's like, some of the ornaments made it off of the rod and out, which would require an upward, it's not just gravity that they all slid off. So she's like, yeah, that's what really, that was what was really scary. I was like, yeah, I agree. That is very scary.
But she loved this ship so much.
Oh, yeah.
She was the nicest woman. She said several times, "This ship is my life. I love it here. And that was really the feeling of everyone that worked there, is they take so much pride in this and the history of it and being able to share that history with younger generations. She helped us pick out our hats that we wore for our investigation, because we thought maybe the sailors will think, because we're wearing admiral hats, that, they can speak to us.
We thought it would work. How effective? I don't know. But we do have to give her a shout out in the gift shop as well, because we just chose hats that said Battleship North Carolina, and I brought it to check out, and she said, "You didn't want the one with the scrambled eggs on it?" And I was like, as a rule, generally I don't buy shirts or hats with scrambled eggs on them. But she explained that on the bill of the hat, the insignia is representative of what your status is on the ship. So she said, well, this one's a captain. That's just a regular hat. That one's a captain's hat. This one's the admiral's. And we were both like, what's like the most in charge kind? And she's like, admiral. We're like, co-admiral.
Okay, we'll be co-admirals. That's probably why no one talked to us, is because they're like, who are we talking to? They both think they're admirals. They can't both be.
Yeah, they need to pick a lane. We had to explain how we run things. It's co-admirals.
Well, what else? Well, we also learned about, hold on. We also learned quite a bit during our pre-investigation dinner that we went to, where Nelson and the rest of the crew, there was probably about 10 or 12 of us, kind of explained like how it would happen and everything. It was also very cool to hear, because it was a casual dinner and everyone talking about other investigations they've been on and things that had happened and creepy stuff. And just to be like at dinner with a bunch of people that are into the same creepy stuff you're into, I'm like, yeah, I'd love to eat a salad and hamburger and talk about ghosts here. That's like my ideal of the perfect evening. Thank you so much.
We're all the people that usually find each other at dinner parties to be like, come over in the corner and talk about something fucked up. And they're like, yeah. Everybody else is like, the economy. And it's like, let's go talk about this. But no, it was just a whole table full of us. And again, the passion and explaining. There was basically a feeling of no stupid questions, because we really didn't know what we were doing. So we would just ask, and they were more than generous with their answers. And we learned about some of the equipment we were going to be using. And Nelson explained this certain type of goggles that are supposed to, we'll get more information on them, but it's to help you break through. And we were like, am I going to do it? Are you going to do it? And you looked at me and goes, I think you said to him, whatever I have to do to break through.
I was willing to go
You're
all
ready.
out. And the goggles were one of the coolest experiences of the night, because you put headphones on that was playing kind of this relaxing type of sounds and stuff. And then the goggles kind of had this orangey light that would morph and change, kind of like if you were closing your eyes and had, like a bright light in front of you that was flickering and kind of moving. But the idea is like it kind of puts you into almost like a trance-like state, so you're more susceptible to communication. But when I was doing it, the lights were changing colors and getting brighter. I was like feeling almost like this lift, not like I was lifting off of the table I was laying on, but just like my chest was like kind of like puffing up, like I was getting like a big breath of air or something. And I kept saying, like, after the colors were changing, and Nelson's like, really? That's not how that usually works. So I don't know what was going on, but it was very cool.
It was cool. And especially having all the red lights all around so that we can see, but that we can still, it stays dark and spooky. So everything just had this kind of eerie glow, but the goggles so it was already red and eerie. And then I put the goggles on and laid down, and I was open to the experience. I didn't really see or feel anything, but it was definitely eerie to be blindfolded, headphoned, laying on a table in the depths of this old haunted ship. It made me feel a type of way, as you would say.
I never felt on the ship scared. Well, except for there was one moment when I did feel very scared, which you'll see in the video. I was more scared that there was going to be like rodents or something down below. That was my fear. Like when we were sitting on the room in the sick bay, sitting on the floor, all posted up, I was like, God, what if a rat scurries across? I'm going to lose my shit, and then I'm going to mess up the audio, because every time you made a noise, you had to say on the audio, like, Christy's moving, Christy's shoe squeaks. So when they go back and listen to it, they can eliminate things that could otherwise be interpreted as unexplained. So I was trying to be so still, and I had to just like sit against the wall so I had a clear view of everything around me. Heather just starfished right on the floor. I was like, you're so brave. I can't believe you're doing that.
I just laid directly on the floor and was just like almost in a shavasana, kind of a yoga position. And I was just like, I'm going to lay here and just be open to whatever sounds or movement or whatever or sights that we want. And in that sick bay right before, I think it was before we had gone in there, another of the teams, because we were split into Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta team. We were on Alpha team with Nelson, the executive director. We felt VIP. But another of the teams had been in there and had this pinpoint. You got it at Spencer's Gifts back in the day. It's a rectangle, a black plastic rectangle with a clear rectangle over it. And you mash your hand in these dull pins to make. I used to just put it on my face a lot as a kid. My sister had one. Or put my hand through it.
Or your middle finger.
Every time. Right.
You got to go into a Spencer's. You put your middle finger there, and then you leave it. And then whoever comes in next is like, I was going to do it, but it's already been done.
You got me. Well, they had one in there because they bring things that can be either curious for the spirits, or that can be moved by the spirits without too much effort, because it's already probably enough energy to be crossing over the plains. I imagine you don't have the energy to also then show us that you're here by moving this refrigerator. That's a lot to ask a living person. So having those pins,
the actual ship from one end of the bay to the next.
We're like, spirits, we're calling on you. Break this baby loose, and we're going to sail it to the ocean.
Get Bobby D. Bobby D's at the helm, and we're taking it out.
Just a crocodile driving the captain. With his admiral's hat. He can have one of ours. We've got two. Mm-hmm. But no, that one pin in that room we were in, one of the pins on the whole thing had been moved. Mm-hmm. So of course, they still have to analyze, like try to recreate it and all that stuff. But that was a room where we were already kind of on edge because something had happened in it. And so I was not thinking about rodents, or not that there were any rodents. I mean, it's open to the public. It's a
Never
museum.
Did see one.
Not even one.
One water bug. And that was it.
Yes, which is fair. The boat lives in a swamp, but
I was honestly pleased that it was just the one. I thought that was my biggest concern, not the ghosts. I was more concerned about the creepy crawlies, and it was very like clean, the whole ship and everything. I mean, it's open to the public for tours, so they keep it really clean and up to date.
Sinisterhood will be right back.
It's the holidays. It can be stressful. We've got habits. Sometimes those habits get kicked up even more when we're stressed out and stuff. But everybody always talks. The New Year's coming up. We're trying to break bad habits, get better about that kind of stuff. Well, have we got a product for you to help with that?
Yeah, it's easier to replace a bad habit with a new, less dangerous and more healthy habit. And that's where Fume comes in.
Fume is an innovative award-nominated device that delivers flavored air when you inhale through it. So instead of electronics, fume is completely natural. Instead of vapor, fume uses flavored air. And instead of harmful chemicals, fume uses all natural, delicious flavors.
Fume is a habit you're free to enjoy and makes replacing your bad habit easy. Your Fume comes with an adjustable airflow dial and is designed with movable parts and magnets for fidgeting, which gives your fingers a lot to do, and it's helpful for de-stressing and for anxiety while breaking a habit. A Fume is a little bit shorter than a pencil, thicker than a pencil. It's wood. It has a hardy feel to its handle, and it does have this tick, 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 like it'll click and spin and clonk. So touching it, you suck on it, touch it, put it in your hand. It's just something for me. I like to click my nails on stuff and feel stuff. And the hefty weight, it's something that I know I can put up to my mouth, and it tastes great and it's healthy and I don't have to worry about it.
Like you said, a really good hand feel. The wood is smooth. It looks nice. So if it is sitting out, it could match your decor. It looks like a nice little piece sitting out, and just moving it around and stuff. And yeah, like if you need to put it up to your mouth, and you know that you're doing something that's healthier for you, which that's what we all want, right?
Absolutely. Stopping is something we all put off because it's hard, but switching to Fume is easy, enjoyable, and even fun. Fume has served over 150,000 customers and has thousands of success stories, and there's no reason that can't be you. Join Fume in accelerating humanity's breakup from destructive habits by picking up the Journey Pack today.
Head to tryfume.com and use code CREEPY to save 10% off when you get the Journey Pack today. That's tryfum.com and use code CREEPY to save an additional 10% off your order today. Also in that sick bay was when Nelson had told us that at a previous investigation, they had the most activity in there because the beds that the sailors, when they were sick, would lay on, like the spring bed is still there. The mattress, well, there's a couple that have mattresses, but it's just the springs. And if you push on them, they make a lot of noise. And in a previous investigation, they had quite a bit of activity down there with someone making a lot of noise with the springs. So we were also a little on edge about that going in.
Yeah, to know that the energy can move a squeaky bed. But they also tried to debunk that and said, okay, well, maybe somebody sat on it and it just got jammed up. And then so that's the other thing is we've experienced something unexplained. We can't say necessarily, a ghost pushed the pin. It is unexplained so far how that pin was pushed. But I liked how the investigation was so organized and so laid out before we even got there. We got a whole itinerary from each certain hours when we're going to be at different places. We got assigned to our teams. Like I said, we're Alpha team. And then when we got there we were in kind of a gathering room, which I think you can rent out for events, that's on the main deck. And Nelson
the comms area is what it was called on the map.
On the map, yes. And
on Nelson's map.
They laid out just all of their equipment, including you'll see a bunch of stuff in our YouTube video as far as technological equipment, as well as these trigger items that I would not have thought to bring that Kelly of the Ghost Guild brought that represented her grandfather in World War II, because the idea is, again, enticing them with objects of energy that may get some sort of a response out of it.
Mm-hmm. Those were very cool to be able to see and handle too. Again, just like this preserved piece of history that most don't get the opportunity to like handle and read and flip through and read what was going on back then without it being, like at a library or something. Like she has this, and that was certainly very cool. Our trigger items were our Admiral's hats from the gift shop, but
yeah,
didn't really do anything.
We command you as superior officers, and the spirits are like, boo! We know you're fake. You suck. So
I also had to get new shoes to even attend because before we went, the Ghost Guild, who was so great about communication and answering questions and what we might need to do. And we texted the day of and said, is there anything we should or shouldn't wear? And Kelly said, just be mindful of the shoes you wear, because if they're squeaky, we have to, take in account into that and mark it on the audio every time it squeaks. For over a year, we have known my sneakers have been squeaky. Every time
Sneaky
on tour,
squeaks.
when I'm walking through the airport, I'm like, oh, these things are so squeaky. So I was like, I can't wear these. I'm going to mess up the whole investigation. We had to find a Dick's Sporting Goods ASAP and go buy me a new pair of shoes so I could go on this investigation.
And the best part is we get them, you try them on, they sounded great in the store. Everything was great. And we're getting all packed at the Airbnb and getting ready to go to the ship because we're going to take a group photo on the bow and then walk around a little bit and get settled. And as we're walking from the dock to the rental car, we just hear squeak, squeak, squeak. And you go, stopped, and the squeaking stopped. And we looked at each other and you're like, no. And then you're like, squeak, squeak, squeak. God damn it. It wasn't as loud as the previous ones, but there was a noticeable sound.
There was a squeak. I don't think it was picked up enough to cause any problems, but there were many times that I would have to say, Christy moving, Christy shuffling. You don't realize how much you move around until you got to like call it out each time you do it.
Right. It's like, Heather, stomach gurgles. Oh, but no, that we kind of started out with free roam, and that's where we went first down into the mess hall, which is where Danny Bradshaw was screamed at, or he screamed at the ghost, and the ghost told him to cut the shit. And we got to do the Estes method. I said Estes. It's Estes, I think. TBD. It's a method where you put the headphones on and listen to the channel scanners. And I now realizing and seeing the stories about it, the mess hall was definitely the place for that. It seems like it's the most hopping place.
Yeah, with the most activity, and the goggles and the Estes method were, I think, the coolest part of it. And there's some very cool footage from when I was doing it, had the headphones on, and you turn away from the group. The idea is that you cannot hear or see what other people in the group are asking, and you are just listening to what is coming through on the headphones and saying any word you hear out loud. So the idea is you're unbiased because you can't hear the questions that are being asked. So if somebody was like, hey, what color shirt am I wearing? And then Heather, just who had the headphones on, said blue, we'd all be like, holy shit, something just answered, because Heather doesn't know what we're even talking about. So it was very cool to see people do that. The first girl that went, she had quite a lot of words come through. There was another girl that was in the investigation that the ghost seemed to really be attracted to. And like they had done an investigation before, and she's like, do you remember me? And there was kind of some beeps and things going off. But I think we got the most compelling footage when I had the headphones on, which we were lucky enough to get on film.
Yeah, definitely. You had them on and you said the bench moved. And then we're filming the bench thinking it's going to move again. And then a device completely, on the other side of the room where none of us are even close to it. The camera, the mics, nothing was close to it. So Paris was filming the bench waiting for that to move. Meanwhile, we all hear beeps. And so it's like a mad scramble to go, where's that beep coming from? And it was one of the objects that gets set off if there's a change in the electromagnetic field around it. And it beeped. And then Kelly asked, can you do it again? And I did it again.
Yeah, a couple times.
So
and I was oblivious to all of this because I have my eyes closed with these headphones on. But watching it back is very cool.
Yeah, the same. When I had the headphones on, I was blissfully unaware of what y'all were saying, what y'all were doing. And I say blissfully with a little tongue in cheek because I was getting ready. I was getting into my trying to be connected with the universe so that the spirits could come through. But I'm also so twitchy and get startled easily. So when y'all flashed the light to tell me that it was over, I just was like, Jesus Christ.
You did flip out. Also, like, the beginning, you were doing some very deep breaths that lasted quite a while, to the point where Kelly was like, is she okay? It can be kind of intense. And Paris and I are like, I think she's just kind of getting into it. But then it kept going on. They're like, do we need to go ask her if she needs to stop? We're like, no, she'll stop in a second. It's fine. And then about 5 minutes later, I flashed the light to be like, okay, we're over, which is what they had told us to do. And that was the most scared you were all night, I believe.
I was so intent in the static that when the light hit me, I was like, oh God, I started screaming. Oh, but I was, I'm a heavy breather in general, but yeah, I was like, I'm going to get into like a meditative kind of state here. But to others, it sounded like I was belabored. I was like, sounds like labored breathing.
Hyperventilating to others.
She's having a tough time. We need to get her. But no, we spent just the very first part of the mess hall and then got to roam around. And in addition to the spooky areas where we went with the lights all turned off, just being in the guts of that ship was fascinating to see.
Oh, yeah.
And knowing there was one of the rooms that was all I think they call it, I can't remember, the birthing, BERTH, but it's where the guys slept. And in some of those, they would have 80 men in one room on these fold down cots that kind of, fold 5 high to the ceiling with super thin blankets. And nobody's going, it's not like, okay, everybody, we're going to go to bed at 9:30 and we're all going to wake up at 6. It's just like everybody has different jobs and is doing different things. Like you probably never slept at all. So maybe you were a restless spirit because you didn't get any sleep with 2,800 other men on board.
Yeah. Seeing the lit up parts, and Nelson was very kind and he knows so much about the ship and kind of was giving us a historical tour in addition to a paranormal investigation. And it's just incredible how small the spaces were that these people worked in. I mean, like manning the artillery that would be used for a cannon in a little tiny thing that's like smaller than a closet. I mean, your arms are almost touching the sides of where you're working, and then being in there for hours upon hours during the day. It was not for the faint of heart.
No, and it was in the South Pacific where it was very warm weather, and they said it would get up to 90 degrees, even in air-conditioned places on the ship with 90% humidity. Oh. So, yeah, I imagine you'd, if you find your ship that you love so much and you're getting a eternal wandering around it, when it's in Wilmington docked, it's a lovely place. You're like,
sure,
I love this ship. And there's no hurricanes. We're not getting shot at. This is the most chill place. I'm going to spend eternity here. So maybe that's why some of the sailors don't want to leave.
There is a gator, but he's cool.
Yeah, he's all right.
You toss him a couple, If
you were a ghost, you can make friends with an alligator because it can't bite you.
Oh.
That's so lucky.
Would the alligator see it?
I bet alligators, I can't prove this, but because of the shape of their eyes, I believe that they can see through the veil. I don't know how to prove it.
Because of the shape of their eyes? Like how they pop up on their skulls?
No, just, what's going on in there. Their pupils and whatnot. They can see.
Pupils? Like everyone?
Typed in gator eyes. God damn, look at that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The way that, because there's like a slit in it. I think that the space around it reflects something. Bobby D knows. He knows more than he's letting on.
Bobby D's seen some stuff up there for sure. And then they toss him a couple, chicken nuggets or something to sustain him.
Every once in a while. But no, yeah, once we got the tour of all the spooky stuff and all the lighted stuff, I loved going up into the captain's area where you would essentially man the wheel and turn the ship.
Which is what we pretended to do and got a lot of fun pictures.
As admirals, we had to.
Yeah, it would also, normally they turn off the tour information, the speaker stuff, but for some reason it hadn't been turned off. So in certain areas of the ship, it was just like the guided tour voice. But at 2 a.m., when you're walking through something and it's like the USS North Carolina, and you're like, God damn, what of the most decorated battleships?
Yeah. And some of them would be motion activated, it felt like. And I was like, it just started talking to me. And Nelson's like, I don't know. But either it was a slight oversight and someone didn't turn it off, or the ghosts were like,
there you go.
Turn it on.
Maybe.
Turn that light on.
Maybe that was it. Well, sitting amid what one employee called hallowed ground, the battleship North Carolina is docked not far from battle sites of the Revolutionary War and Civil War. A ship that navigated through great violence, now docked in an area that has seen so much bloodshed, seems like the perfect site to attract wayward spirits looking for a home base. Lurking within its endless corridors, the battleship North Carolina may just be harboring some restless souls. At the very least, visitors should stay vigilant, as the only thing scarier than a ghastly sailor is a 13-foot alligator nicknamed Bobby D. Also, global warming, which is a legitimate concern now for this ship because, I mean, it's obviously in a body of water, but with global warming and everything, the tides are causing it to rise up more than it should. And also, the parking lot that we parked in will just get flooded. And at one point, it flooded, and then the waters recede, and you got 10,000 dead fish in the parking lot that you now have to contend with. And that's honestly like becoming a problem. It's like, how can we, keep this area in a safe for not only the boat, but like the wildlife and everything that lives there too. We saw when the tides went out, how part of the parking lot, which had been covered in water, was now, just a little bit. And so many birds flocked there to just like eat fish and stuff that had been left behind.
It's like a buffet.
It is a little buffet. And then Bobby D.
A bird buffet. Yeah. And that's nature. Everybody's a buffet item for somebody.
Well, so what do we think?
Well, I won't say I'm sure, but it definitely feels like a energy is around the ship, given it might be its height, its size, how tall the turret goes up so tall, right? The center point of it, I think it's something like 11 stories tall. It's the length of 2 city blocks. And to have as much action as it had and as much pain as it had for as many people in such a small area, I think that could imprint some type of an energy, whether it's a real thing that's an energy or that we all bring it with us, knowing the history and what all went on behind it. That, are we scaring ourselves because we know it is a big, scary battleship, or did it bring some spirits back? I don't think there's anything wrong with what Danny said. It makes sense that young people, a younger guy killed violently, killed suddenly, that might make a spirit confused or not wanting to cross over or something like that. But if anybody would know, I think it would be Danny Bradshaw. And the refrain you hear around the ship of like, I don't know, are there any ghosts around here? You got to get Danny Bradshaw's book. Well, I tried. I've ordered it off the internet. It got delayed. I had to order another one. That got delayed. I will get it.
It was sold out in the bookstore.
They don't have it at the bookstore. They're like, get it off of Amazon. I'm like, damn it. I'm trying to get it everywhere. It's a hot ticket. But if anybody would know, I would say it was him, 1976 to, the last few years. That is many, many, many years in the dark at night. And, we were there for a couple hours, 4 or 5 p.m. to 3 or 4 a.m., 2 or 3 a.m., 12 hours. We got a surprising amount of things on film, but it could never be anything close to something like, 30, 40 years of silent, wandering around by yourself. So I'm sure he has a unique perspective to have experienced all of those, but I'm glad we got to experience what we did and in the way that we did, because I feel like Nelson and Kelly and the rest of the crew really brought a lot of integrity, respect, and almost like a responsibility of we're not here to muck things up, to stir shit. Kelly was saying she wanted to sing to the guys in some like some and old 1940s. Yeah, because it makes them, might make their souls sing or something. So yeah, things like that. And
Nelson, the amount of equipment Nelson has is astonishing. And some of it he has even customized to make it more reliable based on previous investigations. They're like, well, we noticed that, it can kind of wobble. So I added these things so it's more stable. So they really are looking at it as a way of, we have to disprove everything before we can even say, well, this is unexplained. And even then it's not like 100% proof of ghosts. It's just, we can't explain what this was. We've done other tests to see, could it have been that a car went by and the lights caused something to go off, or, they try and do their due diligence with all of that to say, well, we don't know what it was, but we can't say that it definitively was something. It could be unexplained.
gives you a lot of respect for a crew that does that and doesn't do it for we definitely saw a ghost here and either fake stuff or make a mountain out of a molehill. It's way more fun for me. I would rather go and not get anything or get just a little something rather than, making stuff up or getting too excited or whatever, because I feel like we did a thorough job. We did it like the Ghostbusters really would do it. And that's what I want just as a childhood dream. So now we just have to find where we're going to go next.
Yeah, for sure. Yes. And we did it in the perfect way and the respectful way too. Like nobody was yelling at ghosts or anything. Everybody was being super kind, asking questions as if. One thing that I thought was really interesting is Nelson was like, I don't speak to them as if they're dead or as if they're from the past. I'm just like, what's your name? What rank were you and stuff that would be answerable, stuff that would be something that they could answer. It's not like it would be confusing to them. So that was really interesting too. And I thought we had a great team, so much great equipment where I felt like we really got to see like every type of different piece of equipment ghost hunters would use. We got to see like how that works. And that was super cool. Not just like EVP recordings, but a ton of the laser stuff. The laser stuff was maybe my favorite part.
Sinisterhood will be right back. Do you remember a few years ago when actually, it was right when we first started going on tour, and you and Tommy noticed that I always kept a really small moleskin notebook about the size of the palm of my hand in my purse and pulled it out and made notes on it.
Yes.
And how sometimes in public people are like, are you a reporter? And it's like, no, I just like make notes and stuff. I took my favorite nonfiction creative author is David Sedaris, and I took his class. And one of the things he talked about in his class was the importance of not letting fun little moments get away. And I also do it on my phone. So he does it with the notebook. I do it on my phone. But I have a whole list of things now because I learned in David Sedaris' class to do that. Things that we mention on the show, bits that we remember to do, all come. The show is funnier and better because of me taking the David Sedaris class.
Absolutely.
Because I capture those things you say.
You do. And I was going to say, not only the show, but just relationships, because you have a whole list in your phone of funny things that we've said or ideas we've come up with that could be used for like sitcoms. And sometimes you'll just go through and reread them, and we will just laugh and laugh thinking about stuff that otherwise we would have totally forgotten. And I love that you do that because I'm not good about that. And so I'm trying to get better, but I often rely on you. And luckily you took that class. So now I get to benefit too. See, we all benefit when someone takes a class.
Exactly.
Well, this fall, learn from the best to become your best with Masterclass. From leadership to effective communication to cooking. Whether you're watching Masterclass on TV, listening in audio mode, in the app, or on their site, the quality speaks for itself.
How much would it cost to take one-on-one classes from the world's best? Easily hundreds to thousands of dollars. And for David Sedaris, probably he would not take a class with anybody because I don't think he would want to. But with the Masterclass annual membership, it's only $10 a month. Memberships start at $120 for a year of unlimited access to one-on-one classes with all 180 plus Masterclass instructors. You get to learn how to negotiate a raise with Chris Voss, manage your relationships with Esther Perel. There's tons of good artsy classes too.
Oh yeah. I gave a Masterclass subscription to both of my brothers one year for Christmas. And I am the type of person that likes to give experiences. And because I'm always like, well, I don't know that someone wants to have to find a place in their house to put something that I'm going to give them. So I try and give like an experience of type. And what better experience than getting to learn from 180 people that otherwise you wouldn't have the opportunity to do so.
Exactly. And we love Masterclass. The people we give it to as gifts love it too. And you are going to be no different. There are 180 classes to choose from. New classes are added every month. Like I said, the David Sedaris class helped me with being a better writer, being a more observant writer. There's also a Neil Gaiman writing class. They have Aaron Sorkin. So for me, I love to absorb from all these genius writers. Well, I would have to go spend hours on the internet finding all these different interviews, and it would just sort of be piecemeal, where the class that I can take, it's all right there, and it gives me what I need.
It's all been cultivated for you. I love it. And right now, our listeners will get an additional 15% off an annual membership at masterclass.com/creepy. Get 15% off right now at masterclass.com/creepy.
Masterclass.com/creepy. Yeah, there's a pinpoint laser machine that it shoots a grid of pinpoints across an area that you point it towards. And it was pointed in the mess hall kitchen area when we were all in there. And there was movement on that independently, Paris had the camera on it. And you say, because you weren't looking in the camera, so you saw it with your eyes. Paris saw it on the camera of movement in the light that none of us were touching. We were talking and asking questions for it to respond. And that along with playing taps, seemed to bring some sort of energy out, bring a little something out. But understanding that not the mess hall, but the ship itself is technically a graveyard. I mean, it's also where people died. George Conlon didn't get to be brought home and buried. That was that place. And then, he's buried at sea for the 10 other men that were killed there as well. So understanding it is hallowed, it is sacred, but it seems like it's got something it wants to tell us with that flashing green light.
Maybe so. Well, you can go check it out. They're open for tourist visits, tours, field trips, and all sorts of stuff. We'll link their website in our show notes so you can check it out. And if you're in the Wilmington area, or make a special trip down there, because it really is fascinating. It's very cool, and something that as a kid, if I was like, we're all going to this, I'd be like, oh, okay. But as an adult, I really have a greater appreciation for these things. So it's very cool in this line of work to be able to go back and see that kind of stuff that otherwise I probably wouldn't do.
You're right. As a kid, I might have been like, can I just go to the top highest part and look off of it? But now, like you said, reading diaries and seeing the real cost of war and the real cost of violence, and at the end of it, how that does it have, everlasting impacts, and these really are spirits, or do we all just feel a little bit eerie knowing that we're standing on an extremely powerful war machine that was shooting extremely violent, huge guns? I mean, these guns are massive. To think that it was able to take out 7 to 14 planes in 7 minutes it's awe-inspiring, not in a, oh, that's so great way, but in the, oh, holy shit, the cost of war, the cost of humanity. And it's a feeling that it's an eerie, loaded feeling to understand the full cost of war, and especially as we approach Veterans Day.
Absolutely. And the Japanese ship that launched the torpedoes, there were several that they launched, and a couple of the others hit other nearby ships too. So there were multiple casualties, and one of the ships was hit so bad that the captain determined that it would just have to be sunk, that you have to abandon and it's sunk. But it was very eerie and haunting for me to think about, you're on this ship and you know that this torpedo is approaching. You can see it on the radar, and everyone is just manning their battle stations to brace for this impact. And the fear of what that looks like, and whether you're there because you want to be or there because you have to be, the fear is fear. And it is, like you said, it's awe-inspiring, not in a way where I'm like, what a cool thing. Isn't, it's, wouldn't it be wonderful if none of us had to do this? And when I was working on the outline, Ella came in and was like, what is the episode about? And I was explaining to her, and I was telling her about the part I was writing. And she said, did the torpedo, was it supposed to hit the ship? Is that what they meant for it to do? And I said, yeah. And she was like, why did they want to do that? And to hear a 5.5-year-old ask these questions is heartbreaking, because I mean, we know the answer why, but you don't want to shatter their worldview of in innocence. So you try and answer it as honest, but it also is appropriate as you can. And I just said, well, there was a war going on between these countries, and unfortunately during war, people do things like this. And she was like, well, were we on America's side? And I was like, well, we weren't alive back then. She's like, I know, but were we still on their side? And I was like, we're getting into some conversations.
You're like, oh, you're not ready to hear about the military industrial complex.
Yeah,
kid.
I just was like, hey, you want to watch this ghost video Paris made? We're walking around the ship.
You're right, because you can't explain to her, hey, there's Nazis. This is why this war started. A man named Hitler hated this group of people. Because that, as the innocence of a child, is only going to ask why. Why would you hate that group of people? They were just living their lives. And that's the hard part about talking about stuff like this, is that she's a little kid, man. And
it's in the innocence with which it's asked of, and I don't want to call it naivety, because it's just innocence
in a good way, though.
But yeah, one of the biggest blessings of having children for me has been when they do ask these questions that force you to kind of reframe how you think about things and answer it, because we're all jaded adults who have just, grown up and learned things and been taught things that we didn't question, or maybe now we are questioning. So to see it asked from such a place of honesty and sincere innocence, it makes you realize, like, I don't know if I even have the answer to this. And the answer that I might come up with isn't a good one, because at the end of the day, people were fighting to kill each other.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they were doing. They they sent the torpedo to hit this ship because they wanted to kill these people. Yes, they were shooting the guns into the sky at these planes because they wanted to kill these people. I mean, there's no nice way to say that. And I don't think there should be, because it's war. It's not nice, and it shouldn't be sugar-coated.
No, that's a perfect way to put it too. And I don't have a kid, but I imagine having one and understanding they look up to you of like, you're the ultimate answer. And not even like, because, we have each and every one of us has unlimited knowledge and wisdom in the palm of our hand. You literally ask the robot and they can tell you some facts, but the perspective that's so vital that we cultivate for ourselves comes only through work that we do when we don't even realize we haven't done it, because we were privileged to think we didn't have to do it. And now, it's to say, oh, kiddo, boy, how do you break down the complexities of any kind of a war? Because at the root, that is what it is, all very complex. But I will say, the innocence of her is, we all do have that in our gut still of like, but why though? Couldn't we just be peaceful?
Yeah. Yeah.
And more shouting and everything, rhetoric comes on top of that. But at the end of the day, pursue peaceful ends through peaceful means is what Martin Luther King said. And you got to tell her, that maybe you, kiddo, you're 5, but when you're older, maybe the world will be a better place with a heart like that in charge.
Mm-hmm. That is the ultimate goal, I think, for all, that things will be better for the younger generations than they have been for us, and that continues on and continues on. So one way to do that is take kids to stuff like this and teach them about history and encourage them to ask those questions, and challenge yourself to not just reply with an answer you may have been taught since you were a little kid yourself, but really think about, like, gosh, that's a great question. And it's okay to say, like, I don't know. Let's look this up together. When you said, like, we can look anything up, but at the end of the day, a parent to their child, like, their opinion carries more weight than anything they could hear on TV or see on or listen to or something. So it is a responsibility to act with grace and kindness and teach that to our children, and not just knee-jerk diarrhea of the mouth rhetoric that perhaps is no longer really how you feel, but it's just something that's been ingrained in you. Kids challenge you, and it's a wonderful challenge to accept.
No, it's a good way to put it, of challenging ourselves on what my therapist used to say. It's our first thoughts, not our problem. That's our programming. But what you do.
That's a perfect way to say what I've been trying to say.
But I'm quoting another great person, but she says, it's your programming. Your second thought is what you get a chance to really dig in and say, and if your first thought's, I don't know, it's up to you not to sit on that and go, well, I just don't know. You say, I don't know, but let's find out, and we can find out together and talk about it together. And a fine point on it all is from our junior researcher, Ella herself, who said, just believe and be kind. Believe people's first party stories like we heard these soldiers, and be kind.
Well, you can also believe and be kind by touring the ship yourself, and also going to our YouTube to watch our video and leave us a comment. What do you think we captured something? What do you think happened?
What do you think was, as I opened the door I repeatedly offered the ghost to touch you, and for that I'm sorry, but the audio's on the video. Go to youtube.com Sinisterhood podcast and find the video.
You know that you're best friends when there's been no conversation ahead of time. Like, are you cool if I tell the ghost to like goose you? And then afterwards, I'm like, oh yeah, that was totally cool. But like, you knew I would have been fine with it.
For sure. Oh yeah. And as a clarifying point, because we did have people ask us, or social media posts or stuff, asking what a varmint was. It is a rodent-like animal. And to that same thing, goosing is to pinch someone on the butt or the hip the thing, just in case that my country goosing, I realize we do have listeners from all over the world and from different places. So this might be your country lesson, but go give a little goose. If I'm washing my hands at the sink and the ghost, pinches my tushy, that's just getting goosing. He was goosing.
Was Heather trying to get the ghost to give Christy a Christmas goose? What is this bizarre American tradition? It's like, it's grabbing him. It's giving him a little honk on their boot.
Yeah, we're like, no, our Christmas goose, we shove it inside of a turkey, and we shove the turkey inside of something else, and then we deep fry it. No, that's the different. And then we
call it a turducken, and it's a whole thing.
And that's what's wrong. But no, I would go visit it. If you're in Wilmington or near Wilmington, definitely check it out, and definitely check out the Ghost Guild on Instagram at the Ghost Guild NC. And thanks to Nelson, Kelly, and the whole crew for having us. Let us know also in the comments or on Instagram or wherever you interact with us, where you want to see us go on a overnight ghost hunt next, because we want to do another paranormal investigation.
We have a couple in mind that are good ones, and I think we'll get a lot of suggestions for those. But if there's kind of like a more deep cut place, I'm all for that too.
Yeah, let us know. I mean, are we going to sleep over at the house with the horny ghosts in Gainesville or wherever it is around here that we talked about in our Moment show last year? That too. Yeah, I want to go there so bad.
Yeah, probably.
With the big fucking mine shaft in the living room. Absolutely. It's like a 2-hour drive. We have to. We got to call
that has the plexiglass over it. Yes. And you can just see down into what looks like the portal to hell.
Yeah. If y'all haven't seen it, you can still watch our Moment show on Patreon. If you join the $5 tier, it's like, it's our show from last year, but there's an extended part in the middle about some very sexy ghosts that I would like to meet in person, in spirit, I guess.
We got to do it. And yes, to echo Heather's sentiments, thank you so much, Nelson, Kelly, the rest of the Ghost Guild. You are all so much fun and just have so much integrity. And we can't wait to do more investigations with you.
Ooh, we'll see you in the dark.
If you like our free episodes, you'll love our Patreon bonus content. You can join for free to see what we're up to next. We'll send out messages saying, hey, we got this going on. Occasionally we'll post stuff that you get to watch, even if you're not paying. You're just a free member.
And one of those things you would have gotten an alert if you were already signed up is that our bonus content this week, we do weekly bonus content on the show. Something different this week. We're going to do a live stream Thursday at 8 p.m. Central, where we are going to talk about the investigation. We'll answer your questions. The YouTube video, I mean, we were on the ship for like 12 hours and it's like 15 minutes. It's like 10 or 12 minutes. So we'll have some behind the scenes stuff we can share with you, some pics from our phone, and just answer whatever you want to talk about on what's it like to stay on a spooky ghost ship overnight. So join us on Patreon. You can sign up at the $5 tier and above to get on that Thursday, November 9th at 8 p.m. Central.
We've also recently posted a True Crime Headlines where we discuss the most recent movement in the Natalie Holloway case. We have a Judge Christie that's up. We've posted like 3 new bonus segments in the past week. We have a mini-sode that is up that's a harrowing tale involving this woman that escaped a serial killer. There's a bunch of really interesting things on there.
Yeah, and the Great Skeleton Heist of Dallas, Texas of 2023. Yeah. So on one of my random saves.
That's the biggest mystery of all that we're trying to solve
bring
right
Hugh
now.
Jazz home.
Well, and for all of our recent patrons, thank you so much for supporting the show, and make sure you stick around after our sign-offs to hear your shout-out.
You can head to Sinisterhood.com and click shop on the top banner to check out Sinisterhood merch like t-shirts, mugs, totes, stickers, and even clothes for your kiddo. For a limited time, we have got some sales and deals going on our TikTok shop since it's new. We don't really do those sales. TikTok does them. So go on there and get you a deal. I'm not really sure how it works, but you can either go to sinisterhood.com/shop and shop on there, or head over to our TikTok. It's the same merch. It's just TikTok's doing its own thing over there. We also have a brand new merch design that is in our Patreon exclusive store. We posted about it on social media, but it is a very dope design by a wonderful artist named Mariana Yellowish Pencil on Instagram, and we'll make sure to tag her. We already did tag her, but it's a very cool logo available to our patrons. So head over and get you one of those.
It's so cute. I love it so much.
We gotta get some for us too.
Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna order us some. Yeah, for sure. Well, at Sinisterhood.com, you can also review the show, follow us on socials, check out the episode descriptions, and we also have topic-based playlists, links to live show tickets. Anything you need to know about us can be found there in one way or the other.
And if it's not on there, you can follow us on Instagram, X, and Threads at Sinisterhood Pod. You can like us on Facebook at Sinisterhood, and you can watch our video version of this as well as a bunch of other videos we put up on our YouTube channel at Sinisterhood Podcast. We're also on TikTok and Cameo. Holiday season's around the corner. If you have somebody who's like, do not give me anything physical and material, I don't need any more clothes, I don't need any more items. Well, what can you get them for someone so picky and so wonderful in your life? A cameo from us. It's a custom video shout out where Christy and I will say, hey, what's up? And pass on whatever message you want us to pass on. Sometimes wear costumes. Puppets can be involved. It just depends on how much information you give us.
Our pets are often there.
Our pets are there. Ella was sitting next to us on the couch for one. We're like, there's a kid next to us. So whatever you want us to do, just tell us to do it in the cameo.com. Search Sinisterhood for a really good, easy breezy holiday gift, because really we do all the work. All you have to do is forward a video to someone, but you will look like an iconic gift giver.
For sure. So. Absolutely.
Cameo.com, search Sinisterhood. Where are you at online?
I am on Instagram at Christy M. Wallace and TikTok at Christy or GTFO. Heather?
I'm online at Heather versus the World.
As always, the devil rules the airwaves.
Keep it creepy. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Here are your special Patreon shout-outs. Jillian Lee.
Sage.
Brittany.
Candace Drix.
Leslie Krause.
Rebecca Ralston.
Alicia J.
Natalie Howard.
Patty.
Lori.
Audrey Erickson.
And Brittany R. Thank you so much for supporting the show. We could not do this without you. We love each and every one of you. We hope you pronounce your names correctly. Stay safe, stay healthy, and keep it creepy.
Sin